went to British Columbia, where I applied for a therapeutic use exemption and was approved for one. I was able to validate it this past year when I won against another formidable opponent for a company called, or a promotion called Rise Fighting the Stigma, where I, again, validated my therapeutic use exemption, set precedent not only for myself, but also taking that precedent and ran with it to a different commission now in Colorado. So I'm both the first sanctioned cannabis athlete in Canada and now the US, and I'm looking to validate it again December 18th to make history not only for myself, but all other athletes.
Hey everybody, my next guest is Elias, the Spartan Theodorou. He's back and he's getting ready to fight Bryan Baker on Saturday, December the 18th. Elias, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Good to be back.
Elias, as probably the leading ambassador for athletic use of cannabis, you're probably front and center because you are the only sanctioned fighter in the MMA, among other professional sports, to be allowed to use cannabis before, during, and after a bout without any sort of problem. How did you arrive at that goal?
Well, it's been a process, as you would know. Obviously, since the first time we connected and started chatting, it's been a process that's been taking about 5-6 years. It originally started when I was with the UFC, while they were partnered with USADA, which is the United States Anti-Doping Agency. When I became a free agent, I was able to then focus on being an agent of change for cannabis. I came back from the US and went to British Columbia, where I applied for a therapeutic use exemption and was approved for one. I was able to validate it this past year when I won against another formidable opponent for a company called, or a promotion called Rise Fighting the Stigma, where I, again, validated my therapeutic use exemption, set precedent not only for myself, but also taking that precedent and ran with it to a different commission now in Colorado. So I'm both the first sanctioned cannabis athlete in Canada and now the US, and I'm looking to validate it again December 18th to make history not only for myself, but all other athletes.
Right on. I had read some comments that you said that you were planning to just use CBD in the time leading up to a fight. And is that because the use of THC products closer to the fight date has some negative impact on your ability in the ring?
Well, so basically I'm allowed to medicate with cannabis all leading up to the fight. And then the last 24 hours, they want me to, as with any type of, any type of process that a commission does, they don't want you to be inebriated. They don't want you to be under the influence of anything, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cannabis, and that's what kind of my fight has been. To look at cannabis is no different than any other type of medicine. You can't be impaired by the type of first-line medicines, and now cannabis is the same way. So it's not persecuted. I'm not persecuted for using it leading up to my fight. I just got to be 100% clear and ready to kick ass, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's the more important thing.
Yeah, well, it's always struck me as somewhat, interesting to hear that you'd want to use cannabis going into a fight, because anytime I use cannabis, the last thing I want to do is fight. And so I got to think that it's got a physiological effect on your mentality, plus also your physiology leading into those moments. You need to be sort of jacked up. You need to be psychologically prepared. And do you find that if you use THC that inhibits that at all?
No, but again, everybody and every body is different. For me specifically, I use cannabis for the the anti-inflammatory properties, and also the in many ways to help with my neuropathy in regards to the nerve damage that I have throughout my body. I don't know. I think in many ways I kind of go with the flow when I am using cannabis. But again, it's no different than any other type of anti-inflammatory or any other type of first-line medicines that work for other people. Again, what I'm trying to fight is to have cannabis looked at as no different than any other medicine. Obviously, again, everybody and every body is different. Some people, when they medicate or use cannabis recreationally, they're more of a couch surfer than a athletic surfer. But again, every body's different. And for me, more specifically, I use it very much in tune with my athletic side, from, in the gym to, the quote unquote runner's high that, I feel and I recreate every time I, go on for some of my epic runs.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good way to tell if you're naturally inclined towards this kind of sport. Is if you get high and you don't want to fight, then you're probably not a fighter. That's my case for sure. Elias, I want to know: has there been any sort of any sort of subtle kind of criticism or subtle kind of has anybody taken shots at you behind your back, innuendo? Is there any kind of sort of background skepticism, condescension out there in your sport?
You know what? I think it's not the case. Cannabis and mixed martial arts have very much a intertwined relationship. If you go back to the jiu-jitsu, kind of history in regards to both cannabis and jiu-jitsu out in California, and obviously where I am right now in Las Vegas, it's the mecca of mixed martial arts in many ways. Because of the fights and because of the UFC, but it's legal here, and their actual commission removed cannabis as a prohibited substance, where they no longer test for it, right? They use the barometer of, are you impaired? So again, I think in many ways, there might have been some criticisms when I first started doing so, and not only criticisms but also risks to being more publicly out there. But I think so has MMA, so has the nation, and obviously in Canada, but now even in the US, as majority of the population here believe that cannabis should be legalized. I think in many ways, I might have been just a little bit of ahead of the curve in regards to being a part of the cannabis side of history. I think a lot of those criticisms are kind of going by the wayside.
Sure. So are you aware of other competitors in your sport that have sort of embraced the use of cannabis since you've sort of blazed that trail?
Yeah, well, I think, again, there's been athletes that have been able to utilize the fact that certain commissions have removed testing altogether, right? Florida, Arizona, California, or not California, Las Vegas, like I mentioned. So athletes are able to, medicate and use cannabis there without any fear of persecution for their choices. I just think no one has used the medical approach that I have done, which has its own very important aspect. Like as different sports, as different commissions start removing cannabis as a prohibited substance that's tested for. I guess the important thing to emphasize is my classification of a therapeutic use exemption, because it is approved by the state and provincial government. It's actually another foundation of medical cannabis rights for athletes. It's the first time a government, via the Athletic Commission, has recognized cannabis as a medicine in professional sports.
Right. Okay, and I want to talk for a second about this NFT idea that is part of the notes I have about you lately. How does that NFT thing work?
Yeah, so basically I'm going to be commemorating the event itself. It's going to be an NFT, like similar how you can buy a fight t-shirt. There's going to be both a NFT in regards to the shirt that basically, and obviously the animation that goes along with it, that basically represents, me knocking out cannabis from the prohibited substance in sport. Also, you'll be getting a actual physical t-shirt. So there'll be a signed t-shirt that anyone that purchases one of these, we're probably going to have about 1,000 in circulation. I'm pretty sure we're going to sell it basically on weigh-ins. The last time, kind of leading up to just before once I get weighed in, or that's when essentially my validation of my therapeutic use exemption goes through, it's going to go on sale, and it's going to, again, commemorate the historic aspect of cannabis being legalized in the U.S. And, any type of fan or any type of, person on the movement can own a piece of that history, relating to what I have done as a cannabis athlete, but also more importantly, and more broadly speaking, bigger than myself, knocking out cannabis from the prohibited list in athletics.
Wow, that's amazing. Elias, that's great. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for the update. Best of luck in your upcoming fight, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always a pleasure.
You bet. Bye for now.
To kick some ass.
Yeah, right on. Bye.